The shrill ring of the phone pierced the quiet of our kitchen, making me jump. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered, expecting to hear Bennett's voice. Instead, my mother-in-law's saccharine tone oozed through the receiver. "Miranda, darling," Claire cooed, "I'm hosting a little family gathering next weekend. I'd love for you to sing for us." My stomach clenched. In the 15 years I'd been married to Bennett, Claire had never once asked me to perform. "Sing?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, yes," she continued, her words dripping with false enthusiasm. "Everyone's always going on about your voice. I thought it was high time we all heard it." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. "That's unexpected," I managed. Claire's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "Don't be modest, dear. It'll be lovely. Sophie can accompany you on the piano. I've been giving her lessons, you know." My free hand clenched into a fist. Of course, I knew. Claire had been monopolizing my daughter's weekends for months now, all under the guise of quality time with Grandma. "I'll have to check with Bennett," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I've already spoken to him. He thinks it's a wonderful idea." Of course he did. Bennett never could see through his mother's machinations. "Well then," I said, forcing a smile into my voice, "I guess I'll start practicing." "Wonderful," Claire chirped. "I can't wait to hear what you come up with. Ta-ta!" The line went dead, and I slumped against the counter, my mind reeling. What was Claire up to? "Mom?" Sophie's voice startled me. I turned to see my 12-year-old daughter standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay?" I plastered on a smile. "Of course, sweetie. That was just Grandma Claire. She wants me to sing at her party next weekend." Sophie's face lit up. "Really? That's great. Maybe I can play for you." My heart sank. "Actually, honey, Grandma suggested that already." "Oh," Sophie's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "Well, we can practice together, right?" Before I could answer, the front door opened, and Bennett's voice called out, "I'm home." He strode into the kitchen, his tie already loosened, and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "Hey, hon, did Mom call you about the party?" I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. "She did. It was quite a surprise." Bennett grinned, oblivious to my discomfort. "Isn't it great? Mom's always talking about how talented you are. It'll be nice for everyone to hear you sing." I forced a smile. "Right. Nice." Sophie tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, can I go to Grandma's tomorrow to practice? She said she'd teach me a new piece." Bennett ruffled her hair. "Sure thing, kiddo. Your grandma loves spending time with you." I bit my tongue, holding back the words I longed to say. How Claire was driving a wedge between me and my daughter. How she constantly undermined me with backhanded compliments and subtle jabs. Instead, I said, "Actually, Sophie, I thought maybe we could practice together this weekend. It's been a while since we've had some mother-daughter time." Sophie's face fell. "But Grandma's expecting me. She said she has a surprise for me." Bennett chuckled. "Come on, Miranda. Let her go. You two can practice during the week." I felt my resolve crumbling under their combined gazes. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "Have fun at Grandma's, Sophie." As Sophie bounced out of the kitchen, chattering excitedly about her plans, I turned back to the sink, blinking back tears of frustration. Bennett came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "This is going to be great, honey. Mom's so proud of you." I leaned back against him, wishing I could make him understand. But as always, when it came to Claire, Bennett was blind to her manipulations. As I stood there in my husband's embrace, I couldn't shake the feeling that Claire's invitation was more than just a chance for me to sing. It was a challenge, and for once I was determined not to back down. The weekend arrived with a sense of dread. As I watched Sophie pack her overnight bag for Claire's, my heart ached. She hummed a tune I didn't recognize, probably something her grandmother had taught her. "Sophie, honey," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "maybe next weekend we could do something together? Just us girls?" She barely glanced up. "Maybe, if I'm not busy with Grandma." The words stung like a slap. I opened my mouth to respond, but Bennett appeared in the doorway. "Ready to go, kiddo?" he asked, car keys jingling in his hand. Sophie bounced up, all smiles. "Yep, bye, Mom." As they left, I sank onto Sophie's bed, fighting back tears. When had I become an afterthought in my own daughter's life? The house felt empty without Sophie's laughter. I tried to distract myself by practicing for Claire's party, but every song felt hollow. By Sunday evening, I was a bundle of nerves. When Bennett's car pulled into the driveway, I rushed to the door. Sophie burst in, chattering excitedly. "Mom, Grandma taught me a new song for the party. Want to hear?" Before I could answer, she was at the piano, her small fingers dancing across the keys. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, far beyond what I thought Sophie capable of playing. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." I managed, my throat tight. Bennett beamed with pride. "Isn't it amazing? Mom's really brought out Sophie's talent." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Sophie continued to play, I retreated to the kitchen, busying myself with dinner preparations. Bennett followed me. "Hey, you okay?" I took a deep breath. "Bennett, don't you think Claire's been monopolizing Sophie lately?" He frowned. "What do you mean? She's just being a good grandmother. But every weekend, and now this party." I trailed off, unsure how to express my fears without sounding paranoid. Bennett's expression softened. "Miranda, Mom's just trying to help. You know how busy you've been with work. She's giving Sophie something special." I bit back a retort. How could I explain that what Claire was giving Sophie was a wedge between us? The week crawled by, each day bringing us closer to Claire's party. I tried to connect with Sophie, but she was always rushing off to practice with her grandmother. By Friday, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. As we drove to Claire's, my stomach churned with anxiety. Bennett reached over and squeezed my hand. "You'll be great," he said, misreading my tension. Claire's house was already bustling when we arrived. She greeted us at the door, all smiles and air kisses. "Miranda, darling," she cooed, "I can't wait to hear you sing. I do hope you've prepared something appropriate." I forced a smile. "Of course, Claire. I wouldn't want to disappoint." As we moved into the living room, I overheard Claire whispering to another guest. "Such a shame. All that potential wasted on silly pop songs." My cheeks burned. I looked for Sophie, hoping for a friendly face, but she was already at the piano, surrounded by admiring relatives. Claire clapped her hands, calling for attention. "Before we begin, I have a special treat. Sophie has prepared a piece to play for us. Sophie, darling?" My daughter nodded, her face serious as she began to play. The room fell silent, enraptured by the music. I watched, a mix of pride and pain swirling in my chest. This was my daughter, yet I felt no connection to her talent. As Sophie finished, the room erupted in applause. Claire swept forward, enveloping Sophie in a hug. "Wasn't she marvelous?" Claire gushed. "Such talent, it must skip a generation." The room tittered with laughter. I stood frozen, the implied insult hanging in the air. Bennett, oblivious as always, joined in the applause. In that moment, watching Claire bask in my daughter's reflected glory, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about a party or a song. This was war, and I was done playing nice. The days following Claire's party were a blur of tension and barely concealed anger. I tried to talk to Bennett about Claire's behavior, but he brushed off my concerns, chalking it up to family dynamics. It was clear I was on my own in this battle. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in Sophie's room, I stumbled upon a crumpled piece of paper tucked under her bed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I smoothed it out. My heart sank as I read the childish scrawl, "Things Grandma Claire says about Mom." 1. Mom doesn't understand real music. 2. Mom wastes her talent on silly songs. 3. Mom is jealous of my piano skills. 4. Mom doesn't support my dreams like Grandma does. The list went on, each point a dagger to my heart. I sank onto Sophie's bed, the paper trembling in my hands. How long had Claire been poisoning my daughter against me? Just then, Sophie burst into the room. Her eyes widened when she saw what I was holding. "Mom, that's private," she cried, snatching the paper from my hands. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sophie, honey, we need to talk about this. These things Grandma's been saying." "They're true," Sophie interrupted, her face flushing. "Grandma says you're just jealous because I'm better at music than you ever were." The words hit me like a physical blow. I struggled to find a response, but Sophie was already storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I sat there, stunned, as the full weight of Claire's manipulation settled over me. She hadn't just been trying to win Sophie's affection. She'd been actively turning my daughter against me. That evening, as Bennett and I were cleaning up after dinner, I decided to make one last attempt to open his eyes. "Bennett," I began cautiously, "I found something in Sophie's room today. A list of things your mother's been saying about me." He frowned, pausing in drying a plate. What kind of things? I recounted some of the items on the list, watching his face carefully. To my dismay, I saw more confusion than concern. Are you sure you're not misinterpreting? He asked. Mom can be blunt sometimes, but I'm sure she doesn't mean any harm. I slammed the dish I was washing into the sink, soapy water splashing everywhere. For God's sake, Bennett, when are you going to see what's really going on? Before he could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Is this about my recital? I turned confused. What recital? Sophie's eyes darted between Bennett and me. The one at school next week? Grandma's been helping me prepare a special song. My heart sank. How had I not known about this? Sophie, why didn't you tell me? She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Grandma said it would be a nice surprise for you. I felt the last thread of my composure snap. A surprise? Your grandmother has no right to. Miranda, Bennett cut in, his voice sharp. That's enough. You're upsetting Sophie. I looked at my daughter, saw the tears welling in her eyes, and felt my anger deflate, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. I'm sorry, sweetie. Of course, I'd love to hear you sing at your recital. Sophie nodded, then fled back to her room. Bennett gave me a disappointed look before following her. Left alone in the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, my mind racing. The recital. It was the perfect opportunity to show Sophie and Bennett that I wasn't the villain Claire had painted me to be. To prove that I could support my daughter's talents without Claire's interference. As I formulated a plan, a small, determined smile crept onto my face. Claire thought she had won, but the final act was yet to come, and this time I would be the one writing the score. The day of Sophie's recital arrived, and my nerves were frayed to breaking point. I'd spent the week trying to connect with Sophie, but she remained distant, always rushing off to practice with Claire. Bennett, sensing the tension, had become a silent mediator, his eyes darting between us with growing concern. As we drove to the school, Sophie clutched a folder to her chest, her knuckles white. Grandma's meeting us there, she announced, her voice tinged with excitement. My stomach clenched, but I forced a smile. That's nice, sweetie. I can't wait to hear you sing. The auditorium was packed with proud parents and fidgeting siblings. We found seats near the front, saving one for Claire. I scanned the crowd, my heart racing when I spotted her sweeping down the aisle, resplendent in a designer suit. There's my star! Claire exclaimed, embracing Sophie. She barely acknowledged me with a curt nod. As the lights dimmed, I leaned over to Sophie. Break a leg, honey, I love you. She smiled weakly, then hurried backstage. Claire settled into her seat, a smug expression on her face. The recital began, a parade of nervous children stumbling through simple melodies. Then Sophie stepped onto the stage. My breath caught in my throat. She looked so grown up, so poised. The piano intro began, and Sophie started to sing. Her voice, clear and sweet, filled the auditorium. I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed with pride. But as the song progressed, my pride turned to confusion, then dismay. The lyrics were unfamiliar, the melody complex. This wasn't a children's song, it was an aria from a famous opera. I glanced at Claire, who was beaming triumphantly. She caught my eye and whispered, I thought Sophie deserved a real challenge, not some silly pop tune. Anger flared in my chest. This was what Claire had been secretly preparing? A piece far beyond Sophie's years, designed to showcase Claire's teaching rather than Sophie's natural talent? As Sophie hit a particularly difficult passage, her voice wavered. I saw panic flash in her eyes. Without thinking, I stood up, my own voice rising to support hers. Our voices blended, steadying Sophie and carrying her through to the end. The audience erupted in applause. Sophie's face lit up as she spotted me, relief and joy shining in her eyes. For a moment it was just us, mother and daughter, connected by music. Then Claire was on her feet, rushing to the stage. Oh, darling, you were marvelous, she gushed, pulling Sophie into a hug. I knew you could do it. I watched, my moment of connection shattered, as Claire basked in the audience's admiration. Bennett touched my arm. That was amazing, Miranda. I had no idea you could sing like that. Before I could respond, Sophie broke free from Claire's embrace and ran to me. Mom, did you hear? We sang together. I hugged her tightly. We did, sweetheart. You were wonderful. Claire's voice cut through our moment. Sophie, dear, come take a photo with Grandma. We must commemorate your triumph. Sophie hesitated, looking between Claire and me. I saw the conflict in her eyes, the pull of Claire's influence warring with our rekindled connection. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let Claire steal this from me, from us. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I think Sophie and I should take a picture together first. After all, we did just perform an impromptu duet. Claire's face darkened. Now, Miranda, don't be selfish. Sophie's performance was the result of my teaching, and— No, Sophie interrupted, her voice small but firm. I want a picture with Mom first. The shock on Claire's face mirrored my own surprise. As Sophie pulled me towards the stage, I caught sight of Bennett's expression, a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Standing there with Sophie, surrounded by applauding parents and beaming children, I felt a shift. The battle lines had been drawn, and for the first time I wasn't standing alone. As the camera flashed, capturing our smiling faces, I knew the war with Claire was far from over. But now I had hope, and I had my daughter back. The aftermath of Sophie's recital brought a fragile peace to our household. Sophie, buoyed by our duet, began seeking me out for impromptu singing sessions. It was like a balm to my wounded heart, but I knew Claire wouldn't give up so easily. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Bennett approached me with a hesitant smile. Miranda, I've been thinking, maybe we should have a family dinner this weekend. Invite Mom over, try to clear the air. I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. Clear the air? Bennett, your mother has been. I know, he interrupted, surprising me. I've been noticing things. But she's still family. We need to address this head on. Reluctantly, I agreed. Perhaps this was my chance to confront Claire with Bennett as a witness. The night of the dinner arrived, tension thick in the air. Claire swept in, all smiles and false warmth. Miranda, darling, how lovely to see you taking an interest in homemaking again. I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. As we sat down to eat, Claire dominated the conversation, regaling us with tales of her musical accomplishments. I caught Sophie's eye across the table, seeing a flicker of doubt in her expression. You know, Claire said, helping herself to more wine, I've been thinking. Sophie's talent is truly exceptional. She needs proper nurturing. I've spoken to a friend who runs an elite music academy. They're willing to offer Sophie a scholarship, but it would mean her living with me during the week. The room fell silent. I felt as if all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Absolutely not, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Claire's eyes narrowed. Now, Miranda, don't be selfish. This is about Sophie's future. Selfish? I explained, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. You're the one who's been manipulating my daughter, turning her against me. Mom, Grandma, please don't, pleaded, her eyes wide with distress. Bennett stood up, his face pale. Maybe we should all calm down and— No, Bennett. I cut him off. It's time we address this. Your mother has been systematically undermining me, poisoning Sophie against me, and you've been too blind to see it. Claire's facade cracked, her voice turning cold. How dare you? I've only ever wanted what's best for Sophie. Unlike you, who's content to let her talent wither while you chase your own faded dreams. The words hit me like a physical blow. I saw Sophie's face crumple, tears welling in her eyes. In that moment, I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let this continue. Enough, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Claire, I challenge you. At the next family gathering, we'll both perform. Let everyone see who's really the talented one in this family. Claire's eyebrows shot up, a smirk playing at her lips. My dear, are you sure you want to embarrass yourself like that? Mom, what are you doing? Sophie whispered, her eyes wide. I met Claire's gaze, unflinching. I'm dead serious, unless you're afraid to accept. A tense silence fell over the room. Bennett looked between us, bewildered. Sophie clutched her napkin, her knuckles white. Finally, Claire nodded, a predatory gleam in her eye. Very well, Miranda, if that's what it takes to settle this nonsense once and for all, I accept your challenge. As Claire swept out of the house, leaving a wake of stunned silence, the full weight of what I'd done crashed over me. I just challenged a former piano major to a musical duel in front of our entire family. But as I looked at Sophie's face, a mix of worry and something that looked like hope, I knew I couldn't back down. This was my chance to reclaim my daughter's respect, to show her the strength of her mother's love. I excused myself and retreated to our bedroom, my mind racing. I had 2 weeks to prepare for the performance of my life. As I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking, I realized this wasn't just about music anymore. This was about saving my family. With a deep breath, I reached for my old songbook. It was time to remind everyone, including myself, of who Miranda really was. The day of the family gathering arrived, my stomach a knot of nerves. I'd spent every spare moment practicing, determined to show Claire and everyone else what I was truly capable of. As we drove to the venue, a rented hall for the occasion, Sophie's excited chatter filled the car. "Mom, are you nervous? Grandma's been practicing all week, too." I forced a smile. "A little, sweetie, but I'm mostly excited to sing for everyone." Bennett squeezed my hand. "You'll be great, Miranda. Both of you will." The hall was already bustling when we arrived. I spotted Claire holding court near the piano, surrounded by adoring relatives. She caught my eye and smirked, raising her glass in a mock toast. As the evening progressed, I found myself growing increasingly anxious. Claire had yet to perform, and I worried she might back out of our agreement. Just as I was about to confront her, Sophie tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can I play something on the piano?" Before I could answer, Claire swooped in. "Of course, darling. Why don't you play that lovely piece we've been working on?" I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene. Sophie settled at the piano, her small fingers poised over the keys. As she began to play, I noticed something odd. The melody was familiar, but not from our recent practice sessions. It was an old lullaby I used to sing to Sophie when she was a baby. Tears pricked my eyes as Sophie's clear voice joined the piano. This wasn't one of Claire's complex pieces. It was a simple, heartfelt song that Sophie and I had shared countless times. As the last notes faded, the room erupted in applause. Sophie beamed, her eyes seeking mine for approval. I nodded, too choked up to speak. Claire, looking flustered, quickly took center stage. "Well, wasn't that sweet? Now I believe Miranda and I had a little musical duel planned. Shall we?" The room fell silent, all eyes on us. Claire seated herself at the piano, launching into a technically impressive but emotionally sterile rendition of a classical piece. I watched the audience's reactions, noting the polite smiles and stifled yawns. As Claire finished, she turned to me with a triumphant grin. "Top that, dear." I took a deep breath and stepped forward. But before I could begin, Sophie piped up. "Grandma, why don't you sing something?" "Yeah, you always say singing is the true test of musical talent." A hush fell over the room. Claire's face paled slightly. "Oh, I don't know, darling. My voice isn't what it used to be." "Please, Grandma." Sophie pressed, her eyes wide and innocent. "You're always telling me how important it is to challenge yourself." Trapped by her own words, Claire reluctantly stood. "Well, I suppose I could try a little something." What followed was painful to watch. Claire's voice, thin and wavering, struggled through a simple folk song. She hit several wrong notes, her face growing redder with each mistake. The audience shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. As Claire trailed off, visibly shaken, I felt a mix of triumph and pity. This was my moment. I could humiliate her as she had done to me so many times. But looking at Sophie's confused face, I knew that wasn't the right path. Instead, I stepped forward and began to sing the lullaby Sophie had played earlier. My voice, strong and clear, filled the room. I saw recognition dawn in the eyes of my family members. This was the real me, the singer they had known before Claire's influence had diminished me. As I sang, I locked eyes with Claire. Her expression was a mix of shock, anger, and something else. Was it respect? The room was silent except for my voice, everyone transfixed. Just as I reached the final verse, Sophie joined in, her sweet voice blending perfectly with mine. We finished the song together, our voices intertwining in perfect harmony. The applause was deafening. Sophie threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. I hugged her tightly, feeling years of tension melt away. But as I looked up, I saw Claire storming out of the room, her face a mask of fury. Bennett followed her, his expression torn. I realized then that while I might have won this battle, the war was far from over, and the next confrontation would determine the future of our family once and for all. The aftermath of the family gathering was like the calm before a storm. Sophie clung to me, her eyes shining with newfound admiration, while Bennett oscillated between pride in my performance and concern for his mother. Claire had vanished, leaving a wake of whispers and speculation. 3 days later, as I was helping Sophie with her homework, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire, her face a mask of cold determination. "We need to talk," she said, brushing past me into the living room. Bennett appeared from his study, his face etched with worry. "Mom, what's going on?" Claire's eyes darted between us. "I've made a decision. I'm taking Sophie to live with me." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" I gasped, my voice barely audible. "It's clear that Sophie's talent is being wasted here," Claire continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. I'm filing for custody." Bennett stepped forward, his face pale. "Mom, you can't be serious. Sophie belongs with us." "Does she?" Claire's eyes narrowed. With a father too blind to see what's best for her, and a mother who's more concerned with her own faded dreams than her daughter's future? Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and anger burst forth like a dam breaking. "How dare you!" I shouted, my hands shaking. "You've been poisoning Sophie against me for years, manipulating her, trying to steal her away. And for what? To relive your own glory days through her." Claire recoiled, shock flashing across her face before it hardened again. "I've only ever wanted what's best for Sophie. Unlike you, Miranda, I can see her true potential." "Stop it!" Sophie's voice cut through the tension. We all turned to see her standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Just stop fighting." I moved to comfort her, but she backed away. "Sophie, honey." "No," she cried. "I'm tired of all the secrets and the mean words. Grandma, why did you tell me Mom doesn't love me as much as you do?" The room fell silent. Bennett's head snapped towards his mother, disbelief etched on his face. "Mom, is that true?" Claire's composure cracked. I never meant." But Sophie wasn't finished. "And Mom, why didn't you tell me Grandma was lying? Why did you let me believe her?" I felt the weight of my own mistakes crushing me. "Oh, Sophie, I'm so sorry. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Bennett's voice was low, dangerous. "Miranda, how long has this been going on?" I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment of truth. "For years, Bennett, your mother has been undermining me, turning Sophie against me. I tried to tell you, but you never wanted to see it." Bennett's face crumpled. I didn't want to believe it." "Mom, how could you?" Claire's facade finally shattered. "I was trying to protect Sophie. Miranda's not good enough for this family. She never was." The room exploded into chaos. Bennett and Claire shouting, Sophie sobbing, and me standing in the middle of it all, feeling like my world was imploding. Suddenly, Sophie bolted for the door. Without thinking, I ran after her, my heart pounding. I caught up to her at the end of our driveway, pulling her into my arms. "Sophie, please," I begged, my voice breaking. "I love you so much. I'm so sorry for everything." She clung to me, her small body shaking with sobs. "I don't want to go with Grandma. I want to stay with you and Dad." I held her tighter, looking back at our house where Bennett and Claire's silhouettes were visible through the window, still arguing. In that moment, I knew we'd reached a turning point. Everything I'd fought for, everything I loved, hung in the balance. As I stood there, my daughter in my arms and my family in turmoil, I realized that the next few moments would determine the course of our lives forever. It was time to fight not just for myself, but for the future of our family, and this time I wouldn't back down. I stood in our driveway, holding Sophie close, when Bennett emerged from the house. His face was a storm of emotions. Anger, confusion, and a dawning realization that seemed to age him before my eyes. "Miranda," he called, his voice hoarse. "Sophie, please come back inside. We need to talk about this as a family." I hesitated, looking down at Sophie. Her tear-stained face was resolute. "Only if Grandma leaves," she said, her voice small but firm. Bennett nodded, turning back to the house. We followed, my heart pounding with each step. As we entered the living room, Claire stood by the window, her posture rigid with defiance. "Claire," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice, "I think it's time for you to go." She whirled around, her eyes flashing. "You can't dismiss me from my son's house." "It's our house, Mom," Bennett interjected, his tone weary but determined. "And right now, we need to be alone with our daughter." Claire's face crumpled, the mask of superiority finally shattering. "Bennett, surely you can't believe these ridiculous accusations? Everything I've done has been for this family." "No, Grandma," Sophie spoke up, her voice stronger now. "It was for you. You wanted me to be like you, not like me or Mom." A heavy silence fell over the room. Claire looked from face to face, searching for an ally and finding none. Finally, her shoulders sagged in defeat. I never meant to cause such pain, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I only wanted the best for Sophie. The best for Sophie is to have a mother who loves her unconditionally, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Not one who tries to mold her into someone else's image. Bennett stepped forward, placing a hand on his mother's shoulder. Mom, I think it's best if you give us some space. We'll call you when we're ready to talk again. Claire nodded, her usual poise completely shattered. As she gathered her things and left, the tension in the room seemed to leave with her. We sat together on the couch, Sophie nestled between Bennett and me. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bennett broke the silence. I owe you both an apology, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you. I reached across Sophie to take his hand. We all made mistakes, Bennett. What matters now is how we move forward. Sophie looked up at us, her eyes wide. Are we going to be okay? I hugged her close, feeling Bennett's arm encircle us both. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy. Over the next few weeks, we began the process of healing. Bennett and I had long, honest conversations about the years of tension and misunderstandings. We decided to start family therapy, determined to build a stronger foundation for our relationships. Sophie blossomed without the weight of Claire's expectations. We encouraged her to explore her own interests, whether that was music, art, or anything else that sparked her passion. As for me, I rediscovered my love for singing, not for accolades or approval, but for the pure joy it brought me. I started giving small performances at local cafes, with Bennett and Sophie cheering me on from the front row. Claire remained on the periphery of our lives. We didn't cut her off entirely, but we set clear boundaries. Over time, she began to see the damage her actions had caused. It was a slow process, but gradually she started to change. One year after that fateful confrontation, we hosted a small gathering at our home. As I stood in our backyard watching Bennett flip burgers on the grill and Sophie play with her cousins, I felt a profound sense of peace. Claire approached me, her demeanor hesitant. Miranda, she said softly, I want you to know, I'm truly sorry for everything. You're a wonderful mother and a talented woman. I was wrong to ever make you feel otherwise. I looked at her, seeing not the formidable adversary of the past year, but a woman who had lost her way and was trying to find it again. Thank you, Claire, I replied. That means a lot. As we stood there, an impromptu sing-along broke out among the kids. Without thinking, I joined in, my voice blending with theirs. To my surprise, Claire began to sing too. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw genuine warmth in her smile. In that moment, surrounded by the family we had fought so hard to protect and heal, I knew that we had not just survived the storm. We had emerged stronger, more loving, and more authentic than ever before. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.
I recently found out that my husband James sold our house for $610,000 and plans to leave with his girlfriend. This news hit me like a bolt from the blue, especially since it came while he was calling from a hospital. The audacity of his announcement, done with such a light-hearted tone, left me speechless. The house he sold wasn't just any property, but a special home passed down from my father. To hear him so casually mention he has a girlfriend on the side was like a punch to the gut. To top it off, when I brought up our daughter Anna, James's response was cold and dismissive. He didn't care that his decision would leave her and me in a difficult spot. The shock and anger from his betrayal and recklessness were overwhelming. I knew I had to act fast to prevent the sale from going through. My name is Laura Brown, a 35-year-old who once dreamed of a simple, happy life with my family. But life with James has been anything but peaceful. Over the 2 years, I've watched him change, growing more distant and secretive. I've had suspicions of him being unfaithful for some time now. Despite his attempts to keep his extramarital activities under wraps, certain clues like unfamiliar perfume smells and expensive gifts meant for someone else made it hard to ignore the possibility. However, without concrete evidence, I felt powerless to confront him. James works at a manufacturing plant and has developed a habit of going out frequently, often returning home late. These outings became more frequent over the past 2 years, raising my suspicions further. Yet I've been too afraid to confront him directly about these affairs, hoping for some undeniable proof before taking any drastic steps. Reflecting on our past, it's hard to believe how much has changed. James and I met a decade ago, and his warmth and honesty quickly won me over. We married after 3 years of dating, and soon after, our daughter Anna was born. From the outside, our marriage seemed idyllic, but the reality was far from it, especially as the challenges of parenting and household responsibilities grew. Now faced with James's latest betrayal, I'm at a crossroads, forced to take action not just for my sake, but for Anna's as well. Over time, the daily demands of caring for our daughter became more challenging for me to manage on my own. Initially, I reached out to James for help with tasks like bathing and preparing meals for our daughter after he returned from work. At first, James, recognizing his role as a father, willingly assisted with childcare. However, as these requests turned into a regular expectation, his willingness faded, and he began to express his frustration openly. He argued that since I was a stay-at-home mom, managing our child's needs should fall solely on my shoulders, questioning why he, exhausted from work, should have to contribute to these tasks. His outbursts left me feeling isolated and overwhelmed, especially during the evenings when I struggled to soothe our daughter's tantrums and prepare her for bed. James's detachment from parenting grew to the point where he would outright ignore our daughter's requests to spend time with him, attributing playtime and emotional support to Mom's job. His indifference wasn't just towards the playful aspects of parenting. It extended to moments when our daughter needed comfort, responding to her tears with impatience and criticism of my parenting skills. This behavior forced us, my daughter and me, to retreat into our world, seeking solace in each other's company away from his harsh words. Amidst this, I longed for personal time to engage in activities I enjoyed, such as reading or watching movies. But the constant presence and needs of our daughter made this nearly impossible. Meanwhile, James seemed to freely enjoy his interests without considering the imbalance in our household responsibilities or the impact of his verbal abuse on us. The financial dependency on James compounded my feeling of helplessness, as confronting him or making significant changes seemed unfeasible without jeopardizing our daughter's well-being. Years passed in this manner, with James's behavior and our strained relationship remaining unchanged. The compassionate and engaged partner I once knew had completely vanished, replaced by someone disconnected and critical. I navigated our daily lives with the primary goal of avoiding conflict and ensuring our daughter's needs were met despite the growing toll on my well-being. One day, as my daughter and I were drawing together, she complimented my art, suggesting I could pursue drawing as a career. Her innocent encouragement reminded me of my past aspirations and talents, which I had set aside. Her words, filled with admiration and joy for the simple photoshops I created, sparked a moment of clarity and hope. Despite the challenges, her belief in me offered a glimpse of a potential path forward, one where my passions and skills could provide a new beginning for us. Despite the challenges at home, drawing remains a cherished hobby of mine. I often share my artwork with my friends Margaret and Carol, who never fail to express their admiration. They marvel at my ability to create such beautiful photoshops, considering the difficult situation with James, my husband, whose temperament can be quite challenging. Hannah, our daughter, has blossomed into a remarkable young girl, embodying honesty and positivity that contrast sharply with my reserved nature. She's well-liked at school, a testament to her friendly and open attitude, and even her teachers hold her in high regard. When Anna shared her appreciation for my drawings, It was a moment of pure joy for me. Her acknowledgement and the pride she expressed in having a mother who draws filled me with newfound confidence. Her happiness became a beacon of hope for me, a reminder that there's still joy to be found in our lives together. In those moments, I find the strength to continue cherishing the simple yet profound joy of Anna's smile. One evening, James returned home in a state of inebriation, a sight becoming all too familiar and concerning. After he passed out, I discovered a hotel receipt in his pocket, concrete evidence of the infidelity I had long suspected but never confirmed. This discovery stirred turmoil within me, prompting me to contemplate my next steps carefully. The following day, after James left and Anna was at school, I couldn't shake off the thoughts about the hotel receipt. I had always chosen to wait for undeniable proof before confronting James about his possible affairs. Now, faced with such evidence, I felt compelled to address the issue head-on, but I was uncertain about how to approach the situation. Amidst my contemplation, an unexpected call from an unknown number caught me off guard. It was the General Hospital informing me that James had been admitted for emergency surgery related to a severe kidney condition. The news that he might need a kidney transplant was shocking and overwhelming. Despite the pain and betrayal caused by James' actions, the thought of losing him was unbearable. I wanted him to recover, to have a chance at life. The hospital staff explained the urgent need for a compatible donor and the process of testing for donor compatibility. As I absorbed this information, my feelings were a mix of concern for James's health and the complexity of our situation. The prospect of a kidney transplant was daunting, yet it presented a critical moment for reflection on what lies ahead for our family. Through the sleepless night that followed, my thoughts were consumed with James's condition and the significant decisions we faced, highlighting the unpredictable nature of life and the importance of compassion even in the most trying circumstances. In a surprising turn of events, I was identified as the most suitable candidate for a kidney transplant for James. Given James's unique situation as an only child and the ill health of his parents, it fell upon me to consider this significant gesture. Despite the complexity of our relationship and the challenges we had faced, the thought of saving James's life prompted me to agree to the transplant without hesitation. When I discussed James's condition and the impending surgery with our daughter Anna, her understanding and supportive response gave me courage. She encouraged me to do my best, offering her blessing for the procedure. During my hospital stay, Anna was looked after by her grandparents. Despite their health issues, they managed well enough, and Anna enjoyed her time with them, easing my concerns about her well-being during this period. The surgery happened 3 weeks later. It went smoothly, and both James and I began our recovery, with me staying in the hospital for about 2 weeks, and James for slightly longer. We were fortunate to have no complications, and the recovery process was smooth. However, just before I was scheduled to be discharged, I received an unexpected call from James. Anticipating words of gratitude for the kidney donation, I was instead met with a shock. James informed me with unsettling cheerfulness that he had sold our house for $610,000 and planned to leave with his mistress for a trip. This revelation left me dumbfounded. The house, a cherished inheritance from my father, held immense sentimental value. James's disregard for our family and his decision to leave, especially after such a significant medical procedure, was bewildering. His response to my concerns about our daughter Anna was even more disheartening. James's indifference to leaving her behind, coupled with his harsh words, filled me with anger and disbelief. The betrayal and the abrupt decision to sell our home and embark on a new life with someone else immediately after the life-saving surgery I had undergone for him was beyond comprehension. This moment of crisis forced me to confront the harsh reality of our situation and the need to navigate the future for Anna and myself with strength and resilience. I knew I had to find a way to prevent James from hastily selling our home and leaving with his mistress, especially after his shocking announcement. It was hard to grasp that he would make such a drastic decision while still recovering in the hospital. The stress from this revelation not only extended my hospital stay, but also left me feeling defeated and unsure of how to protect Anna and myself from this impending upheaval. In my concern for our future, I reached out to Anna, anxious about how we would manage without our home. My call to her was filled with worry, but Anna's response was unexpectedly reassuring. She explained that despite James's claims, our home had not been sold. This news, though confusing, offered a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Anna, with a calmness beyond her years, shared that there had been a mix-up. James had intended to sell the house through his mistress, but my in-laws had somehow intervened during my hospitalization. Her assurance and maturity in handling the situation brought me a sense of relief and pride in her resilience. After a few more days of recovery, I was discharged and returned to my in-laws' home, where Anna and my mother-in-law greeted me with open arms. The contrast between James's parents' kindness and his actions was stark, prompting an apology from my father-in-law for James's behavior. As we were about to return home, we encountered James and his mistress in a heated argument with a realtor. Their disheveled appearances and the tension between them were a public spectacle. It turned out the buyer had backed out at the last minute, leaving their plans in disarray. Approaching them, I was filled with a mix of emotions, witnessing the fallout of their failed scheme firsthand. This unexpected turn of events not only halted James's plans, but also served as a moment of reckoning for all involved, highlighting the consequences of his actions and the resilience of our family in the face of adversity. Confronting James and his mistress, their shock at seeing me was palpable. Their immediate jump to accusations, suggesting I had sabotaged the house sale, left me both stunned and defensive, protecting Anna. I clarified my identity to the bewildered realtor, only to be met with more chaos and blame from James. He lamented their foiled plans and financial woes, all of which were tied to his irresponsible spending on his mistress. As James's motives became clear, my frustration grew. He had intended to sell our family home, a precious inheritance from my father, to settle debts incurred from his affair, and to finance a new start with his mistress. His disregard for our family, particularly for Anna and me, was infuriating. James's audacity to insult me in such a dire situation only fueled my resolve. In his tirade, I confronted James with the truth. The attempted sale of the house, which he had planned without my consent, was not only disrespectful, but potentially illegal. Then I revealed the twist that even James was unaware of. The supposed buyers of our home were none other than my in-laws. This revelation was a strategic move by them, informed by Anna, to thwart James's plans and protect our family home. The in-laws' decision to step in was driven by their disappointment in James's actions and their trust in Anna's honesty. They were appalled by James's betrayal and chose to side with Anna and me, demonstrating their support in a tangible and impactful way. This unexpected allyship from my in-laws highlighted the strength of our family bonds and the depth of their love for Anna and me, standing as a testament to their integrity in the face of James's selfishness. Anna bravely confronted the situation, explaining to me how she had intervened to protect our home from being sold. She understood the significance of the house, a cherished legacy from my father, and convinced my in-laws that it shouldn't be hastily sold. Their decision to act as fox buyers was a clever maneuver to preserve the home for us, showcasing their deep understanding of its value and their commitment to our well-being. When James derided his parents and accused them of meddling, His words reflected his desperation and disregard for family values. Yet Anna stood strong, unaffected by his harshness. At that moment, I revealed my intention to divorce James by presenting the divorce papers. His scornful reaction, underestimating my ability to thrive without him, only highlighted his ignorance of my resolve and the support system I had in place. I informed James of the unexpected support from his parents, a lifetime gift to me, not him. This gesture from my in-laws was their way of showing appreciation for the family Anna, and I provided them, contrasting sharply with James's ingratitude. Even after I had donated a kidney to him, their decision to pass on a portion of their assets to me was a testament to their love and recognition of my dedication to our family. James's incredulity turned to outrage upon realizing that the assets he expected to inherit were being directed to me instead. His threats to contest the decision legally were a desperate attempt to regain control, but his lack of financial resources and the moral bankruptcy of his actions weakened his position significantly. In response to his bluster, I confronted him directly, highlighting the folly of his ways and the justified nature of his parents' decision. My words, underscored by the gravity of his misdeeds and the implications of his actions, left him floundering. James's eventual plea for forgiveness, devoid of the sincerity needed to mend the fractures he caused, came too late. The support from my in-laws and Anna's unwavering strength had already set the stage for a new beginning, one where respect, integrity, and love form the foundation of our future. Facing James one last time, I made it clear that I would hold him accountable for the turmoil he caused, asserting that I would pursue every cent owed for emotional stress and child support. I was resolute in my determination. If James failed to comply, I promised to go to any length necessary to ensure justice. This declaration sent James and his mistress fleeing in panic, leaving behind a scene of their own making. The realtor, witnessing the ordeal, offered his thanks, although I quickly pointed out that it was I who owed an apology for the commotion. With the situation resolved for the moment, Anna and I left, her admiration for my stance shining through despite the circumstances. Her smile and gratitude reinforced my promise to always protect her. The divorce from James proceeded without complication, closing a chapter of enduring hardship in what felt like a surprisingly straightforward manner. Reflecting on the patience I had for our strained marriage, I was struck by the ease of its conclusion and pondered why I had tolerated so much for so long. In the aftermath, James's life unraveled further. His financial recklessness and the end of his affair, compounded by job loss due to company cutbacks, and his probable misconduct, painted a picture of his rapid decline. Left with no choice but to accept part-time work, James's new reality was a stark contrast to his previous bravado, a fitting outcome for his actions. As for me, Anna's encouragement led me to pursue a career in Photoshop, supported by the generosity of my in-laws. While still building my client base, the positive feedback on my work fuels my ambition. With every Photoshop project, I'm reminded of the new path Anna and I are forging together, away from the shadows of the past and towards a future filled with hope and determination. Hannah suggested I should move into a budget-friendly apartment since she thought my home-based activities didn't justify me living in the family house. She had just come back from the city, set on pushing me out to take over my spot in the home I shared with my in-laws. My work-from-home lifestyle wasn't understood by my in-laws, and now with Hannah's influence, even my husband, William, was plotting against me. They didn't seem to appreciate that I was the one footing the bills for the house's mortgage. The realization hit me hard. Why should I stay with people who constantly make me feel unwanted? If they were so eager for me to leave, then that's exactly what I would do. I had reached my limit of tolerance and, fueled by frustration, decided to transfer the mortgage responsibilities to them. Following my decision, I ended my marriage with William and exited the scene, unaware of the challenges they would face without me. My name is Amy William. My husband is 3 years my senior. Our paths crossed at work, but ours was not your usual workplace romance. William was employed by the janitorial service at my office. Life had dealt me a harsh blow, having lost both my parents in a short span. First, my father fell ill and was given a mere 5 months to live. During his care, my mother also succumbed to illness. With their passing, I was left to navigate the world alone, without siblings or parents. The loss would hit me at unexpected moments, often bringing me to tears. Despite the pain, I masked my grief with smiles, especially at work. The day William and I first truly connected, I was lost in thought by a window, trying to hide my sorrow. Although we had acknowledged each other with nods before, we had never really talked. That day, William approached and checked in on me, noticing my somber mood. Opening up to him felt surprisingly easy, perhaps because he was somewhat of a stranger. Then William's empathy, when he learned about my parents, was a comfort. He shared his closeness with his own parents and understood my sense of loss. This exchange marked the beginning of our conversations and eventually our relationship outside of work. When we started dating, William introduced me to his parents. They were welcoming and understanding of my situation, offering me kindness and a place in their lives. Becoming close with William's family happened seamlessly and without a traditional proposal. We naturally transitioned into marriage. Post-wedding, William and I found a cozy apartment close to his parents and embarked on our new life together, recognizing the future we envisioned, which included potentially starting a family. I shifted careers to a remote role, allowing for more flexibility. Although I shared this significant change with William, it seemed he didn't fully grasp what it entailed. He knew I worked from home, but the nuances of my job were a mystery to him. Despite changing jobs, my income remained stable, so I took on the responsibility of covering our living expenses. William earned less, so we agreed he would save his earnings aside from occasional social outings. His financial contributions were minimal, as his social life was modest and inexpensive, mostly involving outings with me or friends. William was comfortable with me managing our finances, a setup that worked well for us. Working remotely offered numerous benefits, notably the ability to share unhurried meals with William. This was a luxury I wouldn't have had at my old job. Cooking had once been a simple affair for me, but now, eager to please William, I found joy in preparing more intricate meals. Our life together was tranquil and fulfilling. However, a few years into our marriage, we faced an unexpected crisis. A devastating fire destroyed William's parental home, erasing tangible memories and possessions. Thankfully, his parents were safe, but the loss was immense. They stayed with us temporarily, a time during which I sought to uplift them much like they had supported me through my own parents' loss. I took on additional household duties and made sure to cook comforting meals, all while managing my work. Despite our efforts to make them feel at home, William's parents were acutely aware of their dependence on us and expressed concerns about overstaying their welcome. It was clear they longed for independence, and normally, this situation led William and me to a significant decision. We would build a new home to accommodate all of us. This idea, though never explicitly discussed before, felt right given our circumstances. Anticipating future needs, I had been saving diligently, separate from William's savings. The timing seemed perfect to use these funds towards constructing a new home. We envisioned a home that could symbolize a new beginning for his parents while honoring the past. The original home, a charming wooden structure built by my great-grandfather, held many memories but was no longer practical. Our decision to build a new house was met with joy and gratitude from William's parents, marking the start of an exciting new chapter for all of us. This collaborative effort was a testament to our family's resilience and unity in the face of adversity. As William's parents aged, their health concerns grew, leading to numerous special requests for the new house we planned to build. William, eager to ensure their comfort, proposed several additional features. This, of course, drove the costs significantly higher than we initially planned. Despite the escalating expenses, I committed to these enhancements, believing in the long-term value of our future home. Around this time, I noticed a shift in dynamics. William began to assert to his parents, Samantha and Tyler, that he was the primary force behind the house's construction. They frequently expressed their gratitude to him, overlooking my financial contributions entirely. Despite the mortgage and ownership documents bearing my name and the down payment coming from my savings, it appeared William hadn't shared these details with his parents. His continuous claims led them to pressure me into showing gratitude towards him. My contribution wasn't about seeking acknowledgement from William, Samantha, or Tyler. I contributed more financially simply because I was in a position to do so, not for gratitude. However, William's failure to correct his parents' misperceptions, coupled with his jokes about supposed indebtedness to him, left me feeling deeply frustrated. I didn't demand William to disclose the full extent of my contributions, but I hoped he would at least stop diminishing my role. Yet he continued, emboldened perhaps by the house construction project. To my dismay, I discovered William was spreading falsehoods about his employment, claiming to work at the prestigious company I was associated with. While he did have business interactions with the company, the way he presented his involvement was misleading. This pattern of dishonesty and exaggerated self-importance eroded my trust in him and made interactions with his parents increasingly uncomfortable, as they seemed to favor him unconditionally. I had hoped that moving into our new home would alleviate these tensions. However, the opposite occurred. Once we settled in, the underlying issues intensified. William and his parents failed to grasp the legitimacy of my remote work, misinterpreting my home-based job as leisure. Complaints about my supposed idleness became more frequent, with insinuations that I should contribute more despite my financial support and ongoing work commitments. Their attitudes drove me to seek refuge outside our home, opting to work from cafes just to escape the constant snide remarks. This change in my work environment was a direct response to the growing discomfort and misunderstanding within my own home, highlighting the deepening divide between us. I continuously asked William to address his parents' misconceptions about my work. Although William might not fully grasp the nature of my job, it was my income that sustained our household, including his parents. All I wanted was for him to communicate the simple truth to them. However, William dismissed my concerns, suggesting I ignore their comments. Consequently, with the perception that I wasn't working, I was burdened with all the household chores, and his parents began to treat me like their personal assistant. Reaching my breaking point, I confronted them, expecting William's support in the moment of my distress. Contrarily, William rebuked me for speaking out and shockingly presented me with divorce papers as a threat to conform to their expectations. William's unprecedented anger and ultimatum left me feeling powerless, leading me to reluctantly acquiesce to their demands. Following this incident, both William and his parents became distinctly indifferent towards me, with my only respite being the time spent working on my computer, immersing myself in my job to escape the harsh reality of my home life. During this tumultuous period, Hannah, William's sister, who had been living in the city, visited to see the new house, and decided to extend her stay almost immediately. William's parents began to air grievances about me to her, criticizing me for spending too much time isolated with my computer, insinuating I was living off their generosity without contributing. They mocked my dedication to my work, questioning its validity, and jesting that I must be a nerd for being so engaged with technology, all while suggesting I did nothing meaningful. Their conversations took a more demeaning turn as they speculated about my past role, incorrectly suggesting I had been a cleaner at William's company. Further fueled by William's deceitful claims about his employment, this inversion of our realities, with William positioned as a high-ranking employee and me as a menial worker, was a narrative he had crafted, leaving me isolated and discredited. When Hannah announced her decision to permanently move in after quitting her job in the apparel industry, citing a desire for a change and the allure of starting a business from our new, more luxurious home, my situation worsened. Her decision was met with enthusiasm from William and his parents, further marginalizing me in my own home. I was relegated to eating alone, preparing meals for a family that no longer included me at their table, all while juggling my work responsibilities. This arrangement persisted until Hannah's departure date, when she unexpectedly declared her intention to stay indefinitely, finding the house comfortable and seeing an opportunity to reset her career. Her announcement was celebrated by William's parents and William himself, who took pride in the praises for the house, further solidifying my position as an outsider within my own home. Despite Hannah's recent decision to stay with us permanently, there was no room specifically allocated for her. Until her announcement, she had been occupying the guest room, but her permanent residence required a more permanent solution, and our house lacked additional space. After spending 2 weeks with us, Hannah boldly stated her expectation for me to vacate. "I'll live here, so you should leave," she declared confidently, suggesting that my home-based lifestyle didn't merit a place in such a desirable home. She insisted I should find a less expensive living arrangement elsewhere. Samantha, aligning with Hannah, dismissed my attempts to explain the validity of my work, leaving me defenseless against their groundless judgments. The assertion that I was unproductive simply. Because I worked from home, it was a tactic used to pressure me unfairly. Frustration was mounting within me as William passively observed the unfolding drama, neither defending the truth nor correcting misconceptions. I had remained silent up to this point, mindful of William's feelings, but the situation compelled me to assert the truth openly. I informed Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah that the house was registered in my name, the mortgage payments were my responsibility, and the initial down payment was sourced from my savings without any financial contribution from William. William's reaction to my confrontation was panic followed by defensive aggression and attempts to discredit me further, indicating his desperation to maintain a facade. Despite my clear explanations, his parents and Hannah remained unwavering in their support for him, labeling me the liar. The realization dawned on me that leaving this toxic environment might be the only way to preserve my sanity, especially since they erroneously believed William could sustain the financial burden of the household. Resolved to extricate myself from this untenable situation, I reconsidered the divorce papers William had previously brandished as a threat. The prospect of transferring the house's title to William initially seemed to please him immensely, as he likely envisioned gaining full ownership without understanding the accompanying responsibilities. However, the process of changing the mortgage into his name revealed William's aversion to the complexities involved. He naively thought it was a mere matter of signing his name, unaware of the legal and financial implications. Reluctantly, I accompanied a clueless William to the bank and a legal advisor for the necessary consultations. Throughout, William's attention was fixated on his smartphone, showing interest only when it came time to sign the documents, eagerly inquiring if this would officially transfer the house into his name. Upon my confirmation, he signed with enthusiasm, oblivious to the realities of his new obligations. Once the legal procedures were finalized, the house, along with its mortgage responsibilities, would indeed be transferred to William. I had painstakingly explained the situation multiple times, yet it seemed only the full weight of his new role as the sole proprietor would reveal the true extent of his misconceptions and the financial obligations he had underestimated. I couldn't help but marvel at William's reaction. Even after transferring the house and mortgage into his name and proceeding with the divorce, he jubilantly shared the news with Samantha, Hannah, and Tyler. It baffled me how they could still entertain the notion that William was employed by a prestigious company while viewing me as jobless. Observing this, I was struck by disbelief and a sense of liberation, knowing my next steps were clear. Following the transfer, William planned a trip to celebrate the divorce, instructing me to vacate the house during their absence. They embarked on a lavish trip abroad, expecting me to disappear quietly. Instead, I took decisive action. During those 12 days, I sold all the furniture and appliances I had brought into our shared home and packed my personal items. Simultaneously, finalizing the sale of a luxurious condo on the top floor of a high-rise building, a place I had stumbled upon seemingly waiting for me, priced at around $8 million. The timing felt serendipitous, and I seized the opportunity to make it mine. The 3 years spent in turmoil with William's family had been taxing, but the prospect of starting anew in my condo filled me with excitement. Unbeknownst to them, I had a substantial inheritance from my parents, which I had wisely invested over the years. These investments flourished, significantly increasing my wealth. I had once dreamt of sharing this fortune with William and retiring early together, but I kept this secret, a decision I now regarded as fortuitous. Their disregard for financial prudence had been a painful lesson, reinforcing my choice to keep my assets hidden. Moving to the condo allowed me to design a living space that truly reflected my tastes, free from the influence and criticism of William and his family. This new home became my sanctuary where I could work in peace, surrounded by objects and memories I cherished, with no one to undermine my lifestyle. I looked forward to exploring new hobbies like joining a cooking class or yoga studio and embracing a tranquil life. The call from William came unexpectedly upon their return, his voice filled with shock and indignation upon discovering the absence of the furniture and appliances. He demanded their return, not understanding that every item was purchased with my money, thus within my right to sell or move as I saw fit. I felt no obligation to leave behind any part of my life with them, not wanting to retain any ties to a household that had brought me so much distress. Now in my new condo, I was truly free, ready to enjoy a life of peace and fulfillment far removed from the turmoil of the past. When I informed William that the items were already sold, he persisted, demanding I repurchase them. I countered, suggesting that someone with a job at a major corporation like him should have no trouble buying new ones. With that, I ended the call, ignoring his subsequent attempts to contact me. Time moved on, and 2 months after William and his family's return from their celebratory trip abroad, I had fully embraced my new life, forming friendships with my neighbors and enjoying various activities, such as cooking classes, recommended by a friend living just below my condo. One day, as I returned from a class, William called, curious yet cautious. I answered, wondering if there was a lingering issue with the paperwork. William's voice, filled with panic and confusion, echoed the chaos of their return. He was upset over discovering the monthly loan repayment amount of $6,100. Confused, he questioned why the loan wasn't settled. not comprehending the financial responsibilities that now lay with him. Despite the bank's thorough explanation, which he had ignored, William's disbelief that the mortgage wasn't paid off revealed his lack of attention during the transfer process. I vividly remembered sitting beside him, observing his disinterest. Now he frantically sought a way out of his new obligations, but it was too late. He had already signed the mortgage over to his name. William's realization that he was solely responsible for the loan repayments marked a turning point. His assumption that I would be struggling post-divorce was baseless. I had managed our finances throughout our marriage, ensuring a comfortable life for both of us. Reflecting on the past 5 months, I pondered over William's lifestyle with his family, likely living beyond their means under Hannah's influence, until the reality of the mortgage hit them. William's predicament seemed distant to me now, as if belonging to a stranger. Indifferent to their financial woes, I took a moment to enlighten William about my current situation, living comfortably in a luxurious condo thanks to my successful investments. His silence on the phone was telling, and after that revelation, his calls ceased, leading me to believe he had somehow coped with this situation. Unexpectedly, William reached out again, reigniting a connection I thought had been severed. Despite our history, his reemergence was met with a sense of detachment on my part, as our lives had diverged significantly since the divorce. My focus remained on my newfound independence and tranquility, far removed from the complexities and turmoil of my previous life with William and his family. When William reached out again, I couldn't help but wonder what urgent matter had prompted his call this time. It turned out to be a crisis. Their house was in the process of being seized. In the background, I could hear the anxious voices of his family, Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah, all in a state of desperation. William, in a voice filled with panic, pleaded for my help. An enforcement officer was at their doorstep, explaining that the house was set for auction, and they were on the verge of eviction. William seemed genuinely surprised when I inquired about warning letters, suggesting they hadn't received any. However, upon further questioning, he sheepishly admitted that such letters might have been overlooked intentionally, having arrived and been opened without any action taken. Each family member, it seemed, had assumed someone else was managing the loan repayments. As the reality of their situation sank in, with a foreclosure looming and the full loan amount demanded immediately, I couldn't help expressing my frustration at William's apparent hopelessness. I suggested pooling their savings as a potential solution, only to be met with the bleak reality that such an option was off the table. Samantha and Tyler had depleted their savings on lavish travels, banking on the future support of their son, who they believed was thriving professionally. Hannah, on the other hand, had not left her job by choice, but was fired for embezzling funds, a far cry from the successful city life she claimed to have led. The financial facade they maintained crumbled, revealing a dire situation. William had exhausted his savings, living under the pretense of a lucrative job, while his family indulged in extravagance, all under the false assumption that their financial stability was secured. The accumulation of these poor decisions led to the inevitable seizure of their home. In the midst of this chaos, William made a desperate proposition for all of us to live together in my luxury condo, as if our divorce had not severed our legal and emotional ties. My response was firm and unequivocal. I refused. Our divorce marked the end of our shared past, and my new life in the condo was a sanctuary built from my independence and success, far removed from the turmoil and deceit that had characterized our marriage. As the saga unfolded, my resolve hardened, especially after hearing my ex-in-laws, Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah, lambasting me with insults in the background of the call with my ex-husband, William. Their words, ranging from calling me heartless to a scammer and a thief, only solidified my decision. Their bitterness and blame shifting, a direct consequence of their own decisions and actions, showed no signs of self-reflection or remorse. Eventually, their argument turned inward, spiraling into a cacophony of blame among themselves. It was at this moment I chose to sever all ties, quietly ending the call and ensuring no further contact by blocking William's number. A few days later, a newspaper headline caught my eye, detailing a father-son altercation that escalated to the point of police intervention. Immediately raising suspicions about William and his father, confirmation came through a mutual acquaintance, revealing the dispute did indeed involve William and his family, stemming from tensions that boiled over after my last conversation with them. The altercation led to their arrest and minor injuries for all involved, alongside a police warning. This incident not only bruised their physical well-being, but also William's professional reputation, as rumors of the fight spread through his workplace, leaving him in a precarious position. Following the fight, the house was sold, and the family relocated to a dilapidated apartment, a stark contrast to their previous living conditions. Their new life, marred by infestations and neighborly complaints, marked a significant downgrade. Hannah's history of embezzlement further complicated their attempts to stabilize, making it nearly impossible for her to secure employment. Thus, the family's financial burden fell solely on William, who, despite his efforts to locate me, found his inquiries fruitless thanks to the discretion of our mutual friends and the vigilance of my condo's concierge service. This chapter of my life, filled with turmoil and strife, felt conclusively closed as I embraced my new existence in the luxury condo. Far removed from the chaos, my days were now filled with hobbies, work, and the peaceful solitude of single life. The decision to move forward unencumbered by the past or thoughts of marriage was not just a choice, but a declaration of my newfound independence and contentment. My mother-in-law yelled at me, saying I not only make our Sunday chores and take care of him, but now I'm trying to get our money too. She called me lazy and said I only bring in $700. I felt scared as she pointed a knife at me. It hurt my feelings a lot. I was doing all the work and looking after the kids because my husband didn't have a job. I couldn't take it anymore. I left everything and took my child to my parents' house. My name is Emily. I'm 23 years old, and I live with my husband, our child, and my mother-in-law. My husband Richard was popular in high school. He was good at soccer and was the student president. Everyone admired him. He came back to our town after getting a job and asked me out. We started dating seriously after a few dates. Even as an adult, he was still the handsome, impressive guy I fell for. After I finished vocational school, I found out I was pregnant. It was a bit unexpected, but I thought I could have a happy life with my child and Richard. But things got tough when we talked about life after getting married. Why don't we move into my parents' house after we get married? Richard suggested. But I want it to be just us three with our child, I replied. But won't it be expensive to live on our own? He asked. If we stay with my parents, we won't have to worry much about money. And if we both work, we can afford our own place, right? I reasoned. Well, about that. My income this month isn't great, Richard admitted. How bad is it? I asked. It's less than $11,000, he confessed. What? Why is it so low? You told me you were working at an egg company, I exclaimed. I quit that job. Now I'm making money at the casino and doing part-time work, he explained. At a casino? Why would you do that? I questioned. After just 1 month, he quit his job. If you're okay with paying for everything, we can live in an apartment, he said casually. His lack of enthusiasm made me worried. Was I the only one excited about our new life? Seeing my concern, he gripped my hands tightly. "It's just temporary until I find a new job. I'll make you happy, Emily. I'll take care of all the chores and our child until then." Believing his promise, we got married and moved into his parents' house. After giving birth safely, I was determined to work hard for our son. Both Richard and my mother-in-law seemed happy, and I looked forward to our future together. But even after our son was born, Richard didn't help with chores or taking care of our child. Instead, he spent his days at the casino. After going to the casino again, what about helping with the chores and taking care of our child? I asked, reminding him of his promise. "Don't tell me what to do." Richard suddenly shouted back at me. Confused by his outburst, my mother-in-law came into the room, having heard the argument. "What's going on here?" she asked. "I'm busy with work, and she's asking me to help with chores and taking care of the child," Richard explained. "What? That's the wife's job," my mother-in-law exclaimed. Richard hadn't told his mother about quitting his job. Instead, he painted me as the bad wife who forced him to do all the housework and take care of our child. His lies turned my mother-in-law against me, making her resentful. Richard kept going to his part-time job and the casino, where he often lost the little money he earned. I ended up paying most of our expenses, making our life tough since I wasn't working. Eventually, I had to go back to work, leaving our son at a child care center. Luckily, I found a job as a dental hygienist pretty quickly. But when I came home from work every day, my mother-in-law would yell at me. "What do you think you're doing? This isn't playtime. You're a parent, but all you do is fool around. Make dinner now." She slammed the newspaper she was reading onto the floor in frustration. Sometimes she'd even break plates when she was really angry. My mother-in-law was unpredictable. Her mood could change in an instant. I was afraid of what she might do next, so I just went along with it. But between taking care of my son, working, and doing housework every day, I was exhausted. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to talk to Richard one more time. I caught him before he left for the casino early in the morning. "Listen, I've reached my limit. Can't you help out with our son a little?" "What?" "Like I said, I'm busy. I'm trying to find a new job." "You get that, right?" "Right. Do you want me to stay jobless forever? You'd be in trouble then, wouldn't you? Your child's father unemployed. If you don't like it, just do what you're told," Richard retorted. "But we're barely making ends meet. I'm using up all my savings to cover our food expenses. Do you even know how expensive diapers are? You say you're making money at the casino, but we never see any of it," I argued. Most of our living expenses were covered by my money. My mother-in-law used to pay for utilities, but now she wanted $500 a month from us, so I had to dip into my savings. Even the food costs were eating away at my savings, and I was running out of money fast. All I had left was what I earned from a part-time job I had while I was in school. "That's enough. How dare you talk back to me? You've got a lot of nerve saying those things after moving into my house." Richard, who was usually kind, changed completely when it came to money or the casino. Hearing Richard shouting, my mother-in-law came into the room. "What's going on now? Is your wife complaining again?" she asked. "Yeah, she is. She's telling me to do housework and take care of our child, and she wants me to help with the living expenses. Can you believe her audacity, Mother? Anyway, I'm off to work now," Richard said as he left. Once he was gone, my mother-in-law's expression turned sharp. "You've got some nerve expecting us to take care of your child and do the housework while demanding money from us. You should be ashamed." "It's not like that. I'm not making demands." Life is just really tough without a little help, I tried to explain. You must be wasting money. Aren't you careless with finances? My mother-in-law accused. She didn't understand the situation at all. She didn't know that her own son was unemployed and spending all his time at the casino. My mother-in-law yelled at me, saying I not only make our Sunday chores and take care of him, but now I'm trying to get our money too. She called me lazy and said I only bring in $700. I felt scared as she pointed a knife at me. It hurt my feelings a lot. I was doing all the work and looking after the kids because my husband didn't have a job. I couldn't take it anymore. I left everything and took my child to my parents' house. My name is Emily. I'm 23 years old, and I live with my husband, our child, and my mother-in-law. My husband Richard was popular in high school. He was good at soccer and was the student president. Everyone admired him. He came back to our town after getting a job and asked me out. We started dating seriously after a few dates. Even as an adult, he was still the handsome, impressive guy I fell for. After I finished vocational school, I found out I was pregnant. It was a bit unexpected, but I thought I could have a happy life with my child and Richard. But things got tough when we talked about life after getting married. Why don't we move into my parents' house after we get married? Richard suggested. But I want it to be just us three with our child, I replied. But won't it be expensive to live on our own? He asked. If we stay with my parents, we won't have to worry much about money. And if we both work, we can afford our own place, right? I reasoned. Well, about that. My income this month isn't great, Richard admitted. How bad is it? I asked. It's less than $11,000, he confessed. What? Why is it so low? You told me you were working at an egg company, I exclaimed. I quit that job. Now I'm making money at the casino and doing part-time work, he explained. At a casino? Why would you do that? I questioned. After just 1 month, he quit his job. If you're okay with paying for everything, we can live in an apartment, he said casually. His lack of enthusiasm made me worried. Was I the only one excited about our new life? Seeing my concern, he gripped my hands tightly. It's just temporary until I find a new job. I'll make you happy, Emily. I'll take care of all the chores and our child until then. Believing his promise, we got married and moved into his parents' house. After giving birth safely, I was determined to work hard for our son. Both Richard and my mother-in-law seemed happy, and I looked forward to our future together. But even after our son was born, Richard didn't help with chores or taking care of our child. Instead, he spent his days at the casino. After going to the casino again, what about helping with the chores and taking care of our child? I asked, reminding him of his promise. Don't tell me what to do. Richard suddenly shouted back at me. Confused by his outburst, my mother-in-law came into the room, having heard the argument. What's going on here? She asked. I'm busy with work, and she's asking me to help with chores and taking care of the child, Richard explained. What? That's the wife's job, my mother-in-law exclaimed. Richard hadn't told his mother about quitting his job. Instead, he painted me as the bad wife who forced him to do all the housework and take care of our child. His lies turned my mother-in-law against me, making her resentful. Richard kept going to his part-time job and the casino, where he often lost the little money he earned. I ended up paying most of our expenses, making our life tough since I wasn't working. Eventually, I had to go back to work, leaving our son at a child care center. Luckily, I found a job as a dental hygienist pretty quickly. But when I came home from work every day, my mother-in-law would yell at me. What do you think you're doing? This isn't playtime. You're a parent, but all you do is fool around. Make dinner now." She slammed the newspaper she was reading onto the floor in frustration. Sometimes she'd even break plates when she was really angry. My mother-in-law was unpredictable. Her mood could change in an instant. I was afraid of what she might do next, so I just went along with it. But between taking care of my son, working, and doing housework every day, I was exhausted. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to talk to Richard one more time. I caught him before he left for the casino early in the morning. "Listen, I've reached my limit. Can't you help out with our son a little?" "What?" "Like I said, I'm busy. I'm trying to find a new job." "You get that, right?" "Right. Do you want me to stay jobless forever? You'd be in trouble then, wouldn't you? Your child's father unemployed. If you don't like it, just do what you're told," Richard retorted. "But we're barely making ends meet. I'm using up all my savings to cover our food expenses. Do you even know how expensive diapers are? You say you're making money at the casino, but we never see any of it," I argued. Most of our living expenses were covered by my money. My mother-in-law used to pay for utilities, but now she wanted $500 a month from us, so I had to dip into my savings. Even the food costs were eating away at my savings, and I was running out of money fast. All I had left was what I earned from a part-time job I had while I was in school. "That's enough. How dare you talk back to me? You've got a lot of nerve saying those things after moving into my house." Richard, who was usually kind, changed completely when it came to money or the casino. Hearing Richard shouting, my mother-in-law came into the room. "What's going on now? Is your wife complaining again?" she asked. "Yeah, she is. She's telling me to do housework and take care of our child, and she wants me to help with the living expenses. Can you believe her audacity, Mother? Anyway, I'm off to work now," Richard said as he left. Once he was gone, my mother-in-law's expression turned sharp. "You've got some nerve expecting us to take care of your child and do the housework while demanding money from us. You should be ashamed." "It's not like that. I'm not making demands. Life is just really tough without a little help," I tried to explain. "You must be wasting money. Aren't you careless with finances?" my mother-in-law accused. She didn't understand the situation at all. She didn't know that her own son was unemployed and spending all his time at the casino. I was told to keep quiet, but I couldn't hold back anymore. "Do you know that Richard isn't earning anything? He's unemployed because he quit his job." "Why are you saying that? Richard has always been successful. Sure, he didn't pass his college entrance exams, but he got a job at a reputable company," my mother-in-law insisted. "He quit that job after just a month. Now he's always at the casino. I can't manage on my savings alone. It's not fair," I pleaded. "Don't talk nonsense." My mother-in-law refused to believe me. Her son, who had always been successful in sports and studies, was her pride and joy. She couldn't accept that he was now unemployed and wasting his time at the casino. Her face turned red with anger, and she stormed out of the room. When she returned, to my horror, she was holding a knife. "What are you going to do?" "Please stop." I stepped back, holding my son close. My mother-in-law advanced towards me, knife raised. "I'm tired of your insults towards my son. How a wife like you is ruining Richard. You're a lazy parasite, living off a measly $700. Get out of this house." Her harsh words made me break into a cold sweat. I feared for my son's safety. Seeing my fear, my mother-in-law seemed satisfied and lowered the knife. "Good, you understand. We don't want parasites like you here. Just stay quiet and do your chores," she said before leaving the room. Feeling the tension lift, I collapsed to the ground. My son started to cry, sensing something was wrong. I held him close, stroking his back, and made a decision. We couldn't stay in this house any longer. It was unbelievable that someone could threaten with a knife so casually. She didn't even seem human. Until now, I had been swayed by Richard's sweet words after every argument. I used to think I needed to support him, that he would fall apart without me, but I had reached my limit. Above all, I had to protect my crying son in my arms. I couldn't raise him in this house. I decided to leave the next day. In the morning, my stern-faced mother-in-law spoke to me. "Emily, get ready for my husband's memorial service next week. All our relatives will be there, so everything must be perfect." Without waiting for my reply, she left for a neighbor's house. Next week was my father-in-law's memorial service. Richard and my mother-in-law had been planning a big feast and reminiscing about him. I was supposed to handle all the preparations, but I wasn't listening anymore. As soon as they left, I quickly packed our things and fled my in-laws' house. I didn't have much, just clothes, my son's toys, and diapers. When I got back to my parents' house, they were surprised. But when I told them everything, my mother cried and hugged me tightly. My usually calm father was very angry and told me to rest at home. That evening, the phone rang. It must have been Richard, wondering why I hadn't returned to make dinner. Ignoring the call and blocking his number was a good move to protect myself and my son. The next day, my mother-in-law and Richard showed up at my parents' house together, banging on the door early in the morning. My parents tried to send them away, but I decided to let them in. As soon as I opened the door, they started shouting. "How could you leave without a word? What kind of wife does that? It's strange to just disappear like that. Please, let's not shout. You're disturbing the neighbors," I said calmly, holding back the urge to point out who the real problem was. When they tried to grab me, my father stepped in. "We'll call the police if you resort to violence. Let's talk inside first with my parents present," he said firmly. Once inside, I initiated the conversation with my mother-in-law and Richard. "Why did you leave without saying anything?" Richard asked. "I was overwhelmed with childcare and my job, and yet you never helped despite my pleas." "Well, I was busy," he replied. "Busy at the casino," I pointed out. "Like I've already said, our son doesn't go to the casino." "Stop spreading lies," Richard insisted, while his mother seemed to still believe he was working. It seemed she thought highly of him and couldn't imagine otherwise. "Mother-in-law, where do you think Richard is employed?" I asked. "At a securities company." "I saw the job offer letter, after all," she replied confidently. "Well, why don't we call them and find out if Richard is still there?" "That would settle it," I suggested. "Oh, wait a minute," Richard stammered nervously. "What's the problem?" "If you're working there, it shouldn't be an issue," I pressed. Ignoring Richard's discomfort, I dialed the securities company on my phone and switched to speaker mode so everyone could hear. I asked if Richard was working there. "That individual resigned several years ago. If memory serves me right, he was with us for just about a month," came the response from the other end of the line. The words from the phone left my mother-in-law speechless. Richard was looking down, his fists clenched. "Did you really quit? Why?" she asked. "Because it was frustrating. Everything was just grunt work, and the boss would yell at me for the smallest mistakes." "It felt like harassment," Richard explained. "Richard, why didn't you tell us what you've been doing since?" I asked. "I'm job hunting," he replied vaguely. "How many years have you been job hunting? You don't seem to be getting any offers. Tell me, how many companies have you applied to so I can verify?" I pressed. "Well, there aren't any good job offers. When a good company comes along, I'll get a job," Richard said confidently. You seem very confident in yourself. By the way, you're working part-time now, right? How much did you make last month? I questioned. $700, Richard admitted reluctantly. $700? Didn't you tell me that Emily could only earn $700 and couldn't support herself, so you were the one supporting her? I questioned, realizing that Richard had misled his mother about my income. In reality, as a dental hygienist, I earned at least $2,000. My mother-in-law, now knowing the truth, blushed furiously as she glared at Richard. In response, Richard became extremely angry. Why do you have to do this? This is all your fault, making me look like a fool. He exclaimed, clearly hurt and embarrassed. He hit the table hard. You shouldn't reveal things like this in public. It's defamation. If you want to sue, go ahead, but I'll sue you for threatening me with a knife too. Besides, lawsuits aren't free. Do you have the money? I countered, standing up for myself and refusing to be intimidated. At that, Richard clicked his tongue, likely realizing he had spent all his earnings from the casino. My mother-in-law was in shock after learning the truth about Richard's unemployment. I decided to lay it all out for her. I've been the one earning all our living expenses. When we got married, Richard promised to take care of the housework and childcare instead of me working. But after we got married, he didn't do any of it. That's different from what you heard. It seemed my mother-in-law had simply believed whatever Richard told her. She had gotten upset when I asked for help with the chores and childcare. She even pointed a knife at me and told me to keep quiet and do my housework. I could see her face